Hello there, and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Beginner Self-Publishing Advice and Inspiration podcast. Today, as always, I am Dan Parsons, the marketing manager for ALLi, and with me is...
Hi, I'm Melissa Addey. I'm ALLi's campaigns manager.
And today we'll be talking about a really interesting topic. I think it did the rounds a little while ago. So there was this stat that went around that said essentially it takes a reader 4.5 books on average to recognize you as an author out of the context of your own book. So if they hear your name in conversation, they will recognize you once they've seen/read 4.5 of your books. However, with that being an average, because they don't magically just get it as soon as they get halfway through the 5th book, you can generally speed that process up. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So we will be talking about warming up readers with things like sales funnels and communities, and then eventually moving casual readers over to become superfans. So yeah, Melissa, I think it's probably best for us to start by talking not about what you should do, but about what you want to avoid, because I feel like the pain of getting something wrong is worse than the reward of getting something right. So we should probably help people navigate that minefield before they begin.
Yeah, I think so. So we're going to avoid the reputation destroyers, as it were. So sometimes it is better to just be unknown rather than be hated, I think. So let's start off by trying to avoid those situations that might get you into hot water. So first of all, and I know we've said this before, but we're going to keep saying it because it's one of those important things. Bad reviews do not require you to answer. You don't need to answer. If it's a bad review, you take a deep breath, you go and cry at somebody and you come back. And if it's something you can fix, so if they comment that your covers are looking a little dated or the grammar's not quite what it should be and it could have done with another proofread or something, these are fixable things. Fix them. If it's something that you just were never going to make that person happy, they just were not into you, then just let it go. Let it go. There are forums that celebrate your first 1-star review to make you feel better about it. So just let it go. There is a PR strategy employed by the British royal family, which is you never complain and you never explain. I'm not sure they always stick by that, but on the whole, this is a thing. You don't moan about it and you don't explain all sorts of things to just get into a kind of, what you want to avoid really is you answer them and then they get back to you and then it all gets a bit out of control. That's their opinion and they're entitled to it and it's fine. And actually reviews that upset writers sometimes where they go, but they said something mean about my writing. You don't know that review might actually work for another person reading it. The other person, they might go, yeah, this was a disgusting book full of disgusting scenes of violence and whatever. And someone else will go, brilliant. That's what I like. My battle scenes. I
read zombie stuff.
So, some people will be happy with the bad review because it will guide them that is a book they would like. So let go of the bad reviews. The other one where you may get sort of a review, as it were, but you've got more control over it because generally you cannot get reviews taken down very easily. But if you are doing paid advertising, you may get people respond in a negative way or say something rude or trolling and whatever. You have the ability there, first of all, to remove that comment so that it cannot be seen. Certainly on Facebook, there's interestingly 2 ways of doing that. One is that you can hide it. They will still think it's there. So that's okay. They won't get mad and go, you choked down my comment. They will still think it's there. No one else can see it. And this is a good way around it because you are not engaging. You're not creating any more problems. You're just hiding their comments. So that's a good one. You can also block them. You can ban them. It's your space. You're paying for it. It's you don't let those people into your space. So just get rid of them and then forget about it. Let it go.
Yeah, I think it's a slightly different scenario with the paid ads thing, isn't it? Because you do you don't necessarily want to hide bad reviews or what you would perceive as bad reviews on a retailer website, because like you said, they can influence people's decisions in unexpected ways, and you might actually sell more books as a result of a bad review. But when it comes to paid social media ads that you're actually paying money into, you don't want a bad comment to detract from your ROI, because these things can be quite finely balanced very often. So yeah, this is a good way. Just hide the comment so that nobody else can see it apart from the person who wrote it. And then you can obviously block them so that they don't see your stuff in the future, just because you then don't have the problem again. And no one's harmed by this. You're not doing anything despicable. Nobody knows. This is a victimless act.
It is. Also, on the advertising, I have to comment on this, because there was a guy in a writing forum I saw recently, and he took bad reviews and turned them into marketing, which was hysterical, because one of the quotes he had was, it was a 1-star review, and they said, "I've read all 17 of his books and they're all terrible." And he was like, "This is superb." So he turned that into an advert which has the 1-star rating, and it says, "I read all 17 of his books and they're all appalling," whatever, and put it as the advert, which was quite funny. So if you get one that you can play with, you can consider playing, but otherwise,
they can be quite fun. I'm not sure this was the most marketable one, but one that I heard of by a male author that I know was that the review started with, "This was clearly written by a woman." It wasn't.
Well, so there you go.
Yeah, he did put it on social media for people to have a laugh at that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we know what not to do. And obviously that just scratches the surface of what not to do. There are things that we all discover on our own because we make these mistakes. However, it's probably more useful to go into what we should be doing now. So from the beginning, you're probably not going to have a big system in place. You're not going to know what to do to warm up readers and things, so you'll be quite reactive, and everything will be a little bit short term until you get your feet under you and you know what you're doing. What do you think people should be doing on a short term basis, just to sort of get the wheels turning with engaging readers?
I think there's an expectation maybe from social media and things that you must have millions of followers and stuff. Actually, the number of what they call true superfans that you need is very low. It's something like 1,000 fans. If they're really into you and they buy everything you do, then that's actually a fantastic amount of people. So 1,000 true fans who spend $100 a year, you make $100,000. This is a very small group, really, when you're starting out and you're thinking, "Oh, I have to reach so many people." Not really. You can just start with a small group of superfans and build them bigger and bigger over time. So actually, it's not required to have millions of people totally, in your thrall.
Yeah, and later on in this podcast, we will come to some super deep engagement tactics that we're not going to explain just yet. We'll move on to those a bit later because they're more advanced. But you can literally engage with readers on a one-to-one basis further down the road. And that's a really good way to create extreme true super fans. And if you think you can have one conversation with one reader and then they're locked in for life, you just got to do that 1,000 times and you're set.
It's true. But actually, it only takes those little interactions. And sometimes, if you're doing a paid ad, for example, and someone responds on that and says, "Oh, I really love the books, really enjoying them. When's the next one out?" That kind of thing. For you then to immediately answer and say, "Oh, thank you so much. That's great. The next book's out whenever. So glad you enjoyed it. Have you read the other one?" These sorts of things. People really love that. They get very excited that the author has actually replied to them and is having this conversation with them. And not only that, but on something like paid adverts or social media or those sorts of things, because there's a record of it there. Other people do not even necessarily have to have the interaction with you. They see how you responded to someone else, and they like that. They're like, "Oh, you're nice. You responded. You said something funny or something kind, or you were grateful or whatever." Those positive interactions are not just that one person. If you think of sort of chucking a stone and the ripples, you've got that initial impact with that one person, which is a very strong impact, but then you've got those ripples going outwards, which make a difference to people and how they feel about you as an author.
Yeah, this is not to be confused, by the way, with reviews on sales websites. So you don't want to, even if a review is very positive on, say, Amazon or Kobo or Barnes & Noble, whatever, you don't want to be replying to good reviews in the same way that you don't want to reply to bad reviews, just because it doesn't look professional.
No.
However, on social media, if someone is clearly a super fan and they've messaged you with a question or something like that, replying to them then does make sense, because it will make their day, potentially, or and it can warm up these engines, as we start going. So yeah, just make sure you've got the clear distinction. You don't reply to reviews, but you do to comments.
Yes, indeed. And also that sometimes, you can see that a reader has done something nice, like they'll tag a friend and go, I think you would enjoy these. And that's a really amazing thing they've just done for you there. They've basically advertised your book directly to a friend and giving them a recommendation, which is one of the top ways of getting someone to read a book. And you can respond to that and go, oh, wow, thanks so much for sharing that kind of thing. And that's a really nice way to interact with people.
Yeah. On the topic of replying to people as well, generally, and I think most authors do this, because you say that you do this, Melissa, you will reply to everyone individually. You don't want to hire an assistant to do that for you, because you like the personal touch.
Yeah.
I think it depends on your brand. So if you're a non-fiction author with courses and things like that as well, which people listening to this podcast generally won't be, because this is a beginner class sort of thing. But if you get to that point, then it does make sense to have maybe a team member, and you'd make it clear up front, oh, my team help out with this, because it's more of a customer service role then. Whereas when you're doing, in particular with fiction, you will want to just be replying yourself, because that makes sense.
Yeah. And I actually think, in the lofty daydreams where we are millionaires from the books, I think I would still really want to be doing as much of that personal stuff as possible, because that is me. And it's not that easy for anyone else to copy how you would have responded. And actually that, those personal responses are a big deal. My kids, when they were very little, wanted to write to their favorite authors. And there was, Quentin Blake, who I worship and adore, but he's got like an automated system, which is like, thank you so much. Here's a lovely cartoon for you to color in.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done kind of thing. And I get it, because he's so incredibly famous and whatever. But, they wrote to people like Julia Donaldson. She wrote back. She sent a little handwritten note. She sent stickers. It was like, wow to them. And, they wrote to Sarah Garland, who's a pretty well-known picture author. She wrote back a whole handwritten page with this whole lovely response with a drawing. It was like the best thing I've ever seen. It was so cute. And I was thinking, this woman is really, really busy. How is she managing to do this? But it was so memorable, and I'm still telling you the story 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I know how she did it. Procrastination. She did.
That's the reason she don't write that many books.
I mean, George R. Martin does a lot of fan service, but he doesn't write books.
But they love him. So
yeah, absolutely. Nothing against George. Right. Okay. So, you've done the short-term stuff. You're replying to people where relevant and not replying where not relevant. Yeah. One thing we should probably also mention is that you want to upsell people. So in a moment, we will go on to talking about sales funnels and things like that. However, just know that you will really want to upsell someone in order to graduate them from a casual reader to a more interested reader to a super fan over time. So it will either be they've read one of your books and they're saying about how much they enjoyed it. You can say something like, "Oh, have you considered this other book that you may not know because it's not in the same series?" And then they'll read more of your books to get them to that 4.5 books figure where they know your name. And then there are similar things with social media. So it might be they've followed you on one social media platform and you say, oh, by the way, I also have Instagram if you found me on Twitter, so that you become a bigger part of their life because you've upsold yourself as like you have more footprint in their day, essentially.
And that takes a little bit of time to learn to do it without feeling, I'm just sell to them. And I recommend spending a bit of time thinking about what kind of response would be nice, but allow for the upselling. And it took me a while to figure out mine. So I'll tell you what I do is, because I write series set in very different locations. At the beginning, I just used to answer and go, "Oh, thanks so much. That's so great. I love them. I'm so pleased that you like the books." And I didn't want to go, "Now go and read all the others," because that just sounded really salesy when they had already done something nice. And after a bit, I learned to say, "Oh, well, that's so cool that you like China." And then I'd be like, maybe I'll see you in Morocco one day. And I'd put like a little wink or something, or I'd put a little camel or whatever. I'd put something that kind of indicated, well, we've been on this trip together and now we're going to go on another trip together. And people really responded well to that. And so that's what I do now. Now, whatever series they've done, I then go, well, I'll see you in the next place. I'll see you in the next location. And I've actually, with the book I'm about to finish, I'm actually putting it in the end of a series as well. And I'm going, the series is ending. Come with me to the next place. So I'm already putting it in their mind. There will be another place and we're traveling this thing together. So try and think of ways that you can upsell without it sounding too salesy. Find a way that fits your books.
In a way, you could say that you want to give them more access to you, and then you have access to them. And on that note, is there an easier way to do this so that you're not always doing it on the fly?
Yeah, like a system, you mean? Like an actual system?
Yeah.
So there's a thing that gets talked about a lot in marketing, which is a sales funnel. And again, this sounds like, oh God, it's so salesy and whatever, but it's just a way of moving people from that kind of more casual, like they've read one of your books, to being really, really close up to you and interacting with you a lot, for example, being on your mailing list or whatever. And so a sales funnel is literally, you come in at the top and you work your way through tighter and tighter, getting more and more close to that author. And generally it's a funnel because you have more people come in at the top. They're not all going to make it to the bottom, but we would like as many of them as possible to come closer to you, closer down the sales funnel, if you think of it that way.
Generally, so there are two different types of sales funnels which we should mention. So there's a sort of social sales funnel, and then there's a sales funnel, which is where the original term comes from. So, for example, an author at the top of a sales funnel might be looking at any book. They're just browsing generally. And then when they get a bit lower down, they realize that they want to browse in a specific subcategory, or a different bookshop shelf. And then eventually they find your book, which is, they're looking at your books and they're interested, and then they go on to purchase. In the social context, so they might be looking at general content, scrolling through Twitter or Instagram or on TikTok or whatever. They then find a particular topic that they're interested in, possibly drawn in by something that you've posted. And then they become interested in your content specifically, and then you can convert them into a subscriber rather than a book sale. Exactly. And that's generally how these funnels work. They get more and more specific and narrow until eventually they are a fan of you specifically rather than the genre.
Yes. And you become one of their favorite authors is the goal, really, so that the more interaction they have with you, the more books they've read of yours over time, you get into that position, which we all have, where there's an author where you'll just read their book. You're not even bothered with the title. You don't bothered with what they're going to write about. You just go, oh, their new book is out. Just get it immediately. No questions. That's the position you would ideally like to get to with people, where you become that super author of theirs. They're your super fan. You're their super author.
No, there's quite a specific structured way that we've created at ALLi that you can do this with a step-by-step process. So on the blog, we've referred to it as Access Marketing. That's an acronym. Melissa, do you have the acronym off the top of your head ready, or shall I pop through?
I'm going to read it because, otherwise I'll mess it up halfway through. I'll be like, what's the second S for? So basically, Access Marketing, if you think of it as an acronym, so you've got A is for attract. So attracting is basically starting to draw the attention in of readers. So you'll have social posts, you'll have blogs, you'll have adverts, other methods, whatever works for you, even if it, attending a book fair, all of these things, you're beginning to attract readers to you.
You'll make a bit of noise and then eventually people will find you.
Exactly. And then you've got captivate. So captivate is we've got them to come towards us, and now we've got to keep them with us. We've got to keep their attention with us and not just let them drift off again. So again, if you think of them kind of coming over, seeing what you've got, and then you want them to go, oh yeah, no, that was worth coming back for, and that's another interesting thing. You don't want them going, yeah, well, whatever, I'm wandering off again. So we're trying to captivate them. Then we have connection. So our second C is for connection, and that is connect. You're trying to get readers to actually start following you on your preferred channels, whatever they are. So you're wanting now to formalize, if you like, that captivation. You don't just want them to come back randomly whenever they feel like it. You want to have a formal connection there, that you are able to access them, and that they are able to be regularly in contact with you without remembering. You don't want them having to remember and go looking for you. You want them to be reminded by something, whatever the
notifications usually.
Notifications usually, that's the one.
Because you may have noticed, but the internet is quite a distracting place. So
it's a very distracting place.
If you don't get someone to follow you and they have to come back based on memory, often they won't come back.
Yeah, it's just difficult. They could, they'll be like, oh, what was their name again? Or what was that? And then they've gone, and that's it. We have engage. So engaging is where we start having these actual real interactions with them. So they ask questions, we ask questions, we instigate things, we instigate those conversations. It's it'll be on your social media. You can go, well, today I was doing such and such. What's your favorite something or another? What's which page did you like best in the book? Who's your favorite character? And you're starting to try and make people interact with you, because those personal interactions are precious to readers. And if they're not going to initiate that, maybe they're shy, maybe they're not sure if you're going to reply or whatever, you initiate it. You show that you are willing to have those interactions with them. So that's the engagement.
This sort of crosses over into complicit marketing as well. So there's this concept called complicit marketing, where you at least give the readers the impression that they're helping you create a book. So you could come up with maybe a few different book cover variations or book title ideas, and then just put out a poll and see what everyone would like as their favorite. And then obviously using that information, and obviously you've come up with the options, so that it's ultimately going to be something that you like. But your readers may choose one of the options that's their favorite, and then you can say, thank you very much, everyone. All they've needed to do is click a button just to vote, but then they've become complicit and they're more engaged in what you post, because they know that they actually have some deciding vote in what you produce next. So you're more likely to create stuff that they enjoy.
Yes, absolutely. And also things like you can show them some of your processes behind the scenes. You can mention something that's connected to the next book you've got out. So when they read that book, they're like, oh yeah, they mentioned that. They mentioned there's a particular place in America where this happens, and that's where they've set the book. Or this is a particular historical artifact, and wow, look how they've woven it into the story. Those kinds of things enable those conversations and those connections to get a little bit deeper and a bit more connected. Subscribe. So we're on to our S's now. So subscribe. So obviously we've talked about reader magnets and lead magnets before, and that is a moment where you're saying, you subscribe into my content, you get something in return for it. And this is where you're moving someone onto your mailing list. And your mailing list, again, we've said this before, but it is more important than your social media, because your social media is rented space on the internet, and it can come or go at someone else's whim. Your mailing list is yours, and people can leave if they wish, but no one can take your whole mailing list away from you without your permission.
Not even a mailing list hosting company, because you can download a spreadsheet and keep it yourself, and then you can re-upload it elsewhere, so you know that you have access all the time. Shall I do the final S?
Yes.
That is satisfy. So once people have subscribed, you'll want to satisfy them, and the way that you do this, and there is science, I want to say science, it might just be stats. There's science behind this, that if you satisfy your readers on a regular basis with regular emails on the same day or the same date each month, then they are more likely to stay engaged than if you randomly post them out. So you want to satisfy them with regular emails on time. So just to go over a quick brief overview of access marketing again, it stands for Attract, captivate, connect, engage, subscribe, and satisfy. Now, providing you've set up your newsletter correctly, we've talked about onboarding sequences in a previous episode, and you've also set up your back matter in your books correctly. What this will do is create a bit of a virtuous circle where people who subscribe to your mailing list are going deeper into your sales funnel, and they will buy more books. And people who buy your books will go through the sales funnel on the back matter of the books, and they will become subscribers. So the entire thing flywheels and gets bigger over time.
Yes. And I think when you're starting out, I remember, setting up a mailing list, there were like 12 people on it, and you're like, this is never going to work. Like, who are these people with 10,000 people on their mailing list? I mean, how's that supposed to happen? But actually, when you set up all the systems in place for it, and then just let it do its thing, over time, I swear it becomes just an automated regular thing. And you will just wake up every morning like I do, and there will be a thing that tells you how many people subscribed yesterday. And it just happens naturally and simply, and just you're not having to hover over it all the time. It will happen naturally in the end.
Yeah.
And the more books you build, the more places there are for them to come into those funnels.
Yeah, it does snowball as well. So, if you've got 10 readers and then 10% of them tell a friend to join, you've gained 1 reader. By the time you've got 1,000 readers, 10% tell a friend to join, and you've got 100 new readers. So it gets faster and bigger. Yeah. Now, that's the passive stuff. We've done being reactive and doing it that way. And now we've got the setting up passive systems.
Yep.
Is there anything that we can do actively once we've got the passive system set up so that we can accelerate that engine to make sure you start getting more and more engaged readers?
Yeah. So what we're wanting now is we've got our funnel. It's all nicely set up for us. We've got a shape for people to move through. We've got a journey for them to do. So really now you've got to start getting more people into the top of that funnel, because they don't all make it to the bottom. So you need more people to hurry up and get into that sales funnel at the top. So there's a few things that you can start doing. The more the readers see your name, the better that engagement gets, and the quicker they'll recognize you and mention you to other people, those sorts of things which you really want. And in order to do that, they need to see content from you fairly frequently. So that thing we just said about the satisfaction, the satisfy, that regular contact with you is increasing their memory of you and their connection to you, which is important.
Yeah.
And that kind of humanizes you. So they're getting to know you a little bit. Even authors who don't want to put too much of their private lives out there, just think about what you can put out there that you're comfortable with, that will just give that little bit of humanity and information. So it's useful, again, not having to remember it all yourself and, randomly come back to it, just like the readers don't want to have to do that. You don't want to do it either. It's useful to set up some kind of a regular schedule for yourself, preferably monthly, I think is doable and manageable. And what you can do there is, I have like a big wall calendar, and you can write on it different things that you do at different points. So you can write all your promotions and things on there, and you can have on there how many times you're going to post, to where, whatever structure it is that works for you. So you want to have things like social media. So on social media, you can post all kinds of information. I found it really funny that I would create really considered posts and really carefully worded whatevers, and like take beautifully framed photos and and they got a bit of traction. That was all right. And then one day I had a scruffy little word count monitor thing that I use. It's literally a piece of paper that just goes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and I just tick as I do each 1,000 words. And I just put this scruffy little thing on the wall with the new title of a book on, and I thought, I'll just take a picture and put that. Oh my God, they all went nuts. They all behaved like I just finished the novel. I was like, you do know I'm just starting. This is me start. This is what it looks like when I start. But they were just excited. They thought it was fun and exciting to see what I did and how I kept track of things. And so even just doing a little thing like that is fun. I mean, then I do stupid things like dress up in costumes and stuff, because I do historical fiction. That works quite well. But your pets, you know, they want to see the cat lying on all your pile of recycled paper or whatever.
I mean, I have done, I don't know if this is cliched. I'm sure other people have done it before. But I've done the picture of back when I used to print out manuscripts to proofread them. And I wrapped a manuscript in a towel and I was like, I've birthed a child.
I like that. I've never seen that. It's original on me anyhow. That's cool. I like that. Yes. And I always say that the cat enjoys the proofing session because so many bits of paper come off the pile of manuscripts. So that cool stuff like that. So they just like that. It feels like you're talking to a real human being, and that's what people like. Even Stephen King, who you would think, is like he could write something. He posts pictures of his dog, who he calls something like Creature of Evil or something, or Creature of Doom. It's perfectly ordinary dog, and you watch his posts, and it goes woo for the dog, and you're like, well, it works for everybody.
It does.
So you've got things like social media. You've also got your newsletter, which you can send out regularly to your subscribers. And again, you can share that kind of thing, perhaps more in-depth things, more elaborate things, bit more detail, something that makes them feel special. Yeah. And some people do. Some people actually send out new stories or new poetry or whatever to their subscribers, who then feel really special that they got to see something that no one else got to see.
I mean, in the past, I have written short stories about myself from things that have happened, trips and things like that, where you just, if a funny anecdote happens, something that you'd tell people in a restaurant, you can just write it down and make it snappy, because as writers, we can do that. We have that skill.
Yeah.
And then just turn it into a long form email, and people will laugh along and say, oh my God, how embarrassing that happened to you. And it humanizes you, and, they're more likely to read your stuff in the future. I do find with the social media content marketing, it's easier if you use some scheduling software, because then you don't have to do it all the time. You can plan on a piece of paper, as you said, low tech, but then you can also schedule everything for the entire month in advance, apart from the odd impromptu thing that you want to put up in between everything else. It just means that if you've got a schedule there, everything is already going out, and you don't have to worry about adding more content if you don't have time.
Exactly. The only thing I will say with scheduled content, if you schedule it far in advance, just keep an eye or keep a track of what's going to be going out, like today, tomorrow, and also keep an eye on the news in case something you've put out doesn't really is not appropriate, or doesn't seem, you being super funny about something that would be fine on an ordinary day but isn't because something in the news. It's just worth keeping a little eye on that kind of thing.
It's definitely worth it.
Yeah. And again, we talk to people all the time who would go, oh, yes, social media channels, so I should have this and this and this and this. And I'm like, you cannot possibly do all of those channels. You can't. Even with scheduling, although it's great and you can post to multiple channels, your content will not be as good as if you focused on how a particular channel likes to talk. There's a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and it's a guy who talks about how every channel has its own language. And he says, if you just repost content across all of them exactly the same way, you are not making the best of that particular channel.
This is Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way.
Yes, that's the one. I'm so bad at author names. So embarrassing, given that I am an author, to not remember author names, but it's a good book. And so that, just bearing in mind that it might be better to just have a couple of channels that you really learn to work well with, and then you can still schedule and you can still work for them in advance, but to just get better at what works on that particular channel. Yeah,
it's better to be native at one or two, different sites than to try and either copy and paste things across, or there are some people who will use software that funnels everything onto every platform. And often that can actually turn some readers off, because if you're funneling things onto their Facebook feed and they've got, Instagram images, and not so much Instagram now because Facebook owns it, but a different platform, and they've got different hashtags and things like that. If a reader can see that the hashtags are suited to a different platform, they will think, well, that author's not looking at us anyway, so I'm not going to bother engaging with that, and I'm not going to carry on following them, because you're clearly putting the time onto a different channel. Whereas if you're really authentic and you just say, I'm not on this platform often, I'm on this other one, you can come and follow me over there, then they're more likely to follow you where you're going to be.
Yeah, and that can be a really good way of doing it. You're being honest. You're going, I don't have a lot of time. I'm trying to write the other book. The book you'd like me to write. Therefore, I'm not posting every day. But here's something interesting and fun and whatever. And that's fine. People are fine with that.
Yeah. So we've talked about some basic active things we can do. Now, at some point, all of us are going to become advanced authors. I'll tell you when it happens to me. So eventually we'll go on to be advanced authors, and we will be able to do these very clever tactics with different methods of hitting readers with, this is not a good analogy, hitting readers.
We love readers. Hugging readers is what we do.
Lots of ways of hugging readers. And so eventually you'll want to go on to advanced tactics. What could we consider in order to up our game once we've got the basics down?
Yeah. So one of the things we can start doing is to create kind of different levels of readers. So you can have readers who are more casual, let's say. So they have some kind of connection with you. They are into you. You're probably a known author to them. They like your stuff. But then you're starting to get those super fans we talked about earlier, and we're starting to create another layer where they're kind of an inner circle of readers, and they have I don't know, they might become, for example, something on Patreon or other subscription channels where they want to get closer to you. They're prepared to have more time with you. They're more interested in you. They become kind of those super fans that we're trying to build. So they become more important. And there's sort of a two-tier approach happening because they want more access to you. They want more time with you. So they move up into that other level. So with the casual readers, we're still trying to keep those connections. But they may be perhaps more pre-created material. So videos, the newsletters, these things, they work very well for the casual readers. The inner circle may want something more special.
The inner circle would have already been familiar with this stuff, so they will notice if you've brought it from somewhere else.
But they may start to be, for example, they might want to move on to your ARC team. So these are your advanced reader copies. They may be the sort of reader that
I think Melissa has just dropped off there, but I'll carry on with that until her internet comes back.
I'm back.
You're back. You're back. Okay. You disappeared for a second.
Oh, no. Here I am. So, for example, they may want to be on your ARC team. So they may become those people who pre-read a manuscript and are ready to write reviews for it as it comes out. So that can be a really important role for those super fans. Sometimes some people have street teams. So that's where they have their super fans and they're using them on things like Facebook groups to get a kind of viral word of mouth launch happening. And you can use those in different ways according to what works best for your books.
Yeah, I think people use ARC teams and street teams interchangeably as terms. But there is a bit of a distinction. So ARC teams tend to get your advanced reader copy, so they will give you reviews, whereas street teams do a little bit more, where they'll shout about you from the rooftops and engage other groups and do lots of things. Some of them will do guerrilla marketing if they're that engaged, that sort of stuff. So you don't need a street team necessarily as an author, but some authors find it very useful. But an ARC team is virtually essential as a modern indie author.
Yeah. And then you can have things where you have those real super fans. You might do like live in-person events. So Octavia Randolph, I know, does this fantastic trip where you can actually go to the place where her books are set, and she's got a whole thing set up with like a travel agent. They organize everything, the flights, the accommodation. So her superfans will go there. They'll spend days with her. They'll go around all the sites. They'll have a kind of banquet of the right kind of foods from her novels. I mean, just the whole really immersive experience. So that's pretty amazing thing to be able to do.
It is incredible. Yeah. I've also heard of, I think it was Marie Force, the big romance author. I think she mentioned on a podcast somewhere that she actually has a party once a year for her ARC team where they all rent out a hotel and have pool parties and things like that, which is amazing.
Yes. This is what we're all going to aspire to now, Dan.
Yeah, and there are also paranormal romance authors, I think, that do banquets and they have masquerade balls and all that type of stuff. Yeah, so that's what you can get to eventually. We're not saying that everyone should be there now.
This is beginners. We're not quite at that level yet. But
we're just giving a vision for where it can go.
The vision is good. We like it.
So yeah, they are the more advanced tactics. And I mean, once you've been to an author's hotel party, you're probably quite engaged.
There's probably not much more you can do beyond that point.
So that leaves us with just talking about extra resources. So do you have any of the extra resources at hand?
I do have the extra resources. So we have the Indie Author Guide to Finding Followers, True Fans and Superfans. And that's the Self-Publishing Advice Center blog in May 2021. We have Book Marketing, How to Engage Book Clubs. And that's on the blog from April 2016. Book clubs are really cool. I did one with the Women's Institute, and that was really fun. And they invited me round, and you chat about the book and all that. Really cool.
Actually, I went to a book club once as a new author. This was when I brought out my first paperback, and one of the readers there was pregnant. And I later found out that she named the baby after my main character.
No.
And I still get regular updates from her on social media.
That's a good plan. I think that goes one better than pool parties.
That went really well.
Publishing models. Are you a volume, engagement, or craft publisher? Again, that's on the blog. And then on the Podcasting for Authors, we have selfpublishingadvice.org/podcasting authors. And that's just authors who have their own podcasts.
Or want to be on a podcast, because you can appear as a guest, not on this one because we don't take guests. However, there are lots of podcasts that do take guests. And it's an undeniable fact, I think, that if a reader hears your voice, they're more likely to associate you with being a human as opposed to, just being a faceless writer. Or topical AI.
Indeed. Yeah, but AI can do the voice. So
we've almost lost podcasts, but never mind.
Now we're going to have a break. In August, we are not here. We're very sorry. We're going to have a break. It's always good to have a break on your journey. So in September, though, when we come back, we're going to do collaboration and outsourcing. So working with other people in various ways, which is also an interesting part of the learning journey.
It's just to give you a little spoiler as to how that will go, we will probably talk about how it is really interesting and you see lots of potential. There's then a dip where it becomes really stressful. But then long term, much better.
It gets better again. Yeah. It's the smile effect, isn't it? It's
everything's a learning curve. That is everything from Melissa and me this month. And we will see you again on the, I believe, first Tuesday of September.
That's the one.
So we will see you then. And everyone have a good 2 months of publishing in between.
Absolutely.
So bye, everyone.
Have a little break. See you soon. Bye.